Hi. I was going to watch Dr. Grande's film about extroversion. I suspect I'm an introverted extrovert. But then before I got a chance, I started thinking about how cool it was when I was between 4 and 7 years old. We lived in Oregon City, and I had friends on every block, all around our block. Um, and way down the road was a library that had a kiddie pool. That was cool. It was freezing cold, but it was really cool. But on a Saturday, I used to run all over that place. My mother, my poor mother, she could not keep track of me. And I just had so many friends and acquaintances and people to say hi to. And there was a family across the street and down a bit that they would watch Lost in Space every whenever it was on once a week and invite all the neighborhood kids. You could go over there and get a Coke float and sit and watch the show. It was really cool. We used to go to drive-in movies and those little cheap carnivals and things. Um, it was my opportunity to, for the first time. Well, I was 4 when we moved there, to be really social and make a lot of friends, go to parties, and sometimes I was the life of the party. And it was really fun. Me and my best friend Stephanie used to camp in the backyard. We had a tent and everything. So that was cool. We had relatives that lived in Portland and California. They would come up, or Eastern Oregon, they would come. And I was 7 when we left. And I never experienced that again until we lived in Reno, and I experienced something kind of close to that. I had friends. Very often I'd have a best friend and we'd just do everything together. Um, but when you move and you're a kid, it can take you, well, when you're an adult, it's worse. But it can take you time. Like I might have gone 6 or 7 months without really having a friend in Hawaii. I was 7, all of 7 and most of 8 years old. And when I was about 7 and a half, I met my best Hawaii friend. She had long blonde hair like I did, and she had blue eyes. And she had an accent. It was weird, like Pidgin English from Kauai mixed with, her mom was from Holland. So um, her mom would sit and talk to me. We'd fold towels together. We took turns spending the night at each other's house. On a Friday or Saturday, we'd go to Dairy Queen and then we'd get dropped off at the movies. And we lived on the beach when I was 8. So that was cool. Go to the beach. The community pool was a block down. So go, well, do we want the beach or the pool? We usually did both. And that summer that I was 8, um, my parents both worked like 6 days a week. So they got my brother and I a charge account at a little grocery store. It's about a mile or so to walk there. And I'd walk up there once in a while and get, ridiculousness, bread and hot dogs and spaghettios and I don't know, hostess cupcakes, all kinds of stuff. But I'd go home and my chore was to kind of tidy up the house, make the beds and sweep everything, that kind of thing. My cat had a giant aquarium to fish out of, so we didn't have to buy very much cat food. And I'd swim out to the reef, and it had little divots in it. There'd be these fish in the divots, and I'd put them in a baggie. So in 1966, there must have been baggies, and I'd put them in baggies and tie them off because there was no zip lock or anything. Put them in my teeth and swim back. It was quite a ways. I had no idea um, by Cow Street, where the community pool um, was the ocean out to this reef. And I looked it up on Google, and it's whoa, that was a bit of a swim. And one day I got caught out there. I wasn't really paying attention to the tides all the time, and I got stuck. And it was coming up like over the reef. I was like really freaked out, and I looked down and I saw a really big eel. And that was the first absolute recognition that I had that there were big fish around the reef. And so I closed my eyes. I told myself it'd be okay, count to 10 and you'll be okay. And then I jumped in the water and swam back to shore. I was really happy to make it back to shore. Um, there was a certain amount of solitude. Um, I wonder if I would have been a different kind of person if we'd stayed in Oregon City, because I really didn't have that much solitude. It was ruckus, and each place we were had its own charms. It's just a matter of appreciating what nature or whoever is presented in front of you, as long as it's good, clean fun, and you know everyone has their own gifts, and everybody has stories. I always like listening to people's stories. But then after that, I was almost 9, and we moved to Montana, and you felt kind of shut in the northwest Montana town. You're in the mountains, and there weren't as many businesses. Of course, Kauai didn't have that many businesses either. Um, there wasn't that many businesses, and the people were kind of snotty and kept to themselves to a degree. Everybody was very anal and passive aggressive, different. Everybody was different everywhere I was. And I really didn't care for, a few months after we got there, I had super long blonde hair, but the sun had stopped bleaching my hair. So it kind of came in. I had maybe 2 or 3 inches of darker hair coming in. And a little snotty girl named Noelle. Anybody named Noelle should never be snotty. It's a holiday name. But anyway, she came up to me, and there was another girl there, and she said, "Did you bleach your hair?" And that was so foreign to me. I just had, I know my mother dyed her hair off and on. Um, I can never be sure what her true hair color was, but she was blonde when she was a child. But I had heard from my mom that the sun had bleached my hair, was the only thing. So I said, yes, the sun bleached it. I honestly had no concept of a child dyeing their hair. So I thought maybe that's what she was fishing for. But she was just very snotty to me. She said she didn't believe me, and maybe she was jealous. She probably had never been out of town. I don't know, but it kind of hurt my feelings. But I didn't have a true friend until the following year in school in the 5th grade, and her name was Diane, and she came from Minneapolis, and she was just a kick in the pants. Her and me, we'd start laughing in class and couldn't stop doing it. It was very obnoxious, and they separated us in the 6th grade because they weren't going through that again. And just riding bikes together and walking places and going to the store, you know, making up plays and acting in them and having all manner of creative ideas, things. So that was ruckus. So again, before that, I had a lot of alone time. I had acquaintances, you know. I remember when I was like 9 or 10, 9 and a half or so. One of my, there were like the doctor's kids living, walking to school with me. Um, lived in an older mansiony kind of an area, but our house wasn't a rich house or anything. It was like a big old barn. It was a cool house. But anyway, invited me to other classmates, and we went over there and played dolls on a Saturday. And I just thought, this is the most hideous thing in the whole world. I honestly could not figure out why people would have children because playing dolls, like I was more of a tomboy, more of a once they gave me that white stingray with the banana seat and the high handlebars, and I swear to God to you, why would anybody want any other kind of bike ever? Um, I was on the bike. I was on skates, very badly on skates, but I was on skates. I was on a bike. I was in a pool. The best parts of my childhood, running from house to house. The only time I saw that later in my life was really, I lived in Reno for a brief time, a couple of times. And, back before they tightened everything up and closed a lot of things down and burned up the hotels. And it was, like say 99 or 2000, somewhere in there. Go stay a couple months. And there'd be all these places that cost, well, like Hawaii, you could go to in the year 2000, you could go stay at the Waikiki Grand for $170 a week. So it was like that. You didn't have utilities. The only thing of it is, everybody stole. I had 2 cars stolen, and there was a lot of riffraff. But so you had to watch your butt and stuff. But there were jobs if you go sign up at one of those temp agencies. You stack chairs or something. I was so broken a couple of the times I went down there, like I had just broken my leg a few months before or had just thrown my back out kind of thing. And it was a good place. There's a lot of walking. At the very least, you'd do a lot of walking and you'd end up eating less. And then at the best, you'd be getting some little bit of free play from like 3 different places. And you'd run from one place to the other. So it's kind of like that. And I did have friends. I acquired acquaintances, people you'd say hi to, or you'd kick it with them, or you'd have lunch. So I experienced that again there. That was nice. That was off and on. I'd visit there sometimes, going a year or two without going down there, but and then you'd see some of the same people. You'd look out for the old ladies. I remember one time I was standing talking to a friend, and there was a cop kind of just standing there to our left, and there was an old lady standing there to the right. And this is about 15 years ago. And I turned to my friend and I said, "It smells like an apartment fire." It's like you could feel, the stress of that. And the old lady stood in front of me and pulled her shirt all the way up and showed me her back, and it was all burned up from a long time before. And she said I was in an apartment fire. And I was like, oh, that's spooky. But like people would just talk to people, not everybody, and not everybody was nice. Um, you'd spend part of your paycheck or your unemployment check or whatever you got, your birthday money or whatever. And then you'd be like, oh, now I'm going to have to go to the VOA shelter for 3 days, or they had another shelter, so you go stay in the shelter. And sometimes there was a lot of camaraderie, and everybody was nice, and um, you'd make friends in there, or you'd see friends you already knew. And then other times, especially at the VOA, that place was mostly full of people straight out of prison or on their way in. And their probation officers would stick up for them, and they'd steal from everybody. And so that wasn't very nice. Even if you made a friend, you had a really good chance that they were an alcoholic or a drug addict, and they cared a lot more about their dealer than they did about their friendship with you. So that was kind of crappy. I did have a couple friends that were addicts or alcoholics. And you could kind of see all the different ways that that affected your friendship, but still you try to make the best of it, because whoever's in front of you at the time, that's your friend right now and stuff. And I felt sorry for some of them. I had a friend that she was staying in there and I was not. I was stayed in a weekly motel for a while. And she'd call me on my cell phone and she'd say, "Come get me. I'm at the bus station." So she'd have walked up from the shelter because I think she's thrown out for the day or something, like everybody. And so she's sitting there and she's shaking and not feeling good. And so I walked her over to the Silver Legacy and put a couple bucks in her machine, put a couple bucks in my machine, um, and she'd order a drink and, probably another drink after that. I usually didn't stay that long if she was drinking because, you know, a lot of drinkers, they're not like fun. She wasn't a fun drunk. She was really into the drink itself and probably suffering from the misery of not having had it previous. But this one time, after the second hit, boom, I hit aces and I had a ring and hawk. It was like $34 to get it out, so it wasn't much of a ring. But so I said, well, I'm just going to take all this money I just won and go get my ring out. But here's a couple cigarettes and here's a couple dollars, and I'll see you later and stuff. But I think I only responded to those calls twice, and she wasn't a very good friend. She'd invite me to breakfast and then go sit at the more popular table at the Mission. I mean, who does that at the Mission? I don't know. So it was just her and me at a table, and she ditched me. That probably happened 3 times because apparently I didn't get how that was going to go after the first 2 times. But I didn't, I think I just avoided breakfast after that because they would give you way too many eggs. Like eggs up to here. Like, who needs to eat 12 eggs? So then I went on the Snickers bar diet, um, otherwise known as the chocolate cake diet. You'd eat lunch at St. Vincent's. I didn't have breakfast. And then I'd at least eat the boiled egg and the juice or whatever they gave us, coffee or juice. And then at dinner, you'd eat, like, you go to the store and buy a candy bar or something and just have it in your pocket. Because the smell of the food, like 10 years before, if you popped into town and you lost your wallet, you could go in there and have like a buffet. It was very nice. But they moved into an institutional looking building next to all the VOA buildings in like '08. And the food quality, it looked like something they shoveled out of a dumpster. And I'm sure people got sick from that. It was pretty bad. So I just decided, well, I'm 3 days, 3 days for payday. So I'm just going to hang out in the system of things and not eat. And so that's what I did. But it was still ruckus. It wasn't all good times, but there were good times. You'd stay up all night with a friend talking all night long, just going back and forth with life stories. And I only knew that friend for maybe a couple of months, so I didn't know all her stories yet. She had some good ones. So that was really something. And back in like '05 or '06, the circus in Reno would, if you played all day, like I'd come and go though, I'd play a dime, 10-cent poker on it, and I'd have my card in. And they'd have it where if you played for 2 hours, you'd get a buffet. And I got so many buffet coupons. And the same thing, the Calneva did the same thing, and it would be dinner, So I'd earn like some kind of ridiculously magnificent dinner. And the Calneva had their own hotel for a while, and you'd be able to get a night comped or something just based upon having played for a certain body of time. So, I mean, I'm over there on the 2-cent machine going 4 cents, 2 cents. They didn't care. It wasn't that many years before they started to care about that sort of thing. But now Caesars owns the big three. They call it the Row on Virginia there, the Legacy and the Circus and the Eldorado. And I heard it's very corporate. It's not a nice place. And the Sands was bought by somebody named Jacobs, and he butt up and burnt down a lot of the little homey hotels. I was a maid in one of those hotels for a brief time, and those hotels, the Kino 2, it was called, was $20 a day. You just walk in there with a $20 bill and you get a room. And when I was a maid, I really cleaned those rooms. You'd have clean bedding and everything. And basically, I earned a little lunch money because I think I don't really remember now, but I could say it was $1 a room. It probably was $1 a room. But I liked that, I was moving around and had, and then because I got this little paycheck, I could go down and have a bowl of soup or something. So it was kind of nice. It was just a thing. So I liked that there was some degree of socialization there. I didn't like, you know, some of the drug addicts were kind of out of control and not that nice people. But one time I won a drawing, and it was a local drawing though, but I entered anyway. And it was probably 2012 or 13. I don't really remember. It could have been 2014. It was 12 or 13. And I was sitting there. I had a ticket with like a quarter on it. I put it in the only machine available to sit down because I was exhausted and sitting down at this drawing. And you could play, the lowest you could do is a nickel. So I played a nickel, and then I heard my name. And I'm like, well, that can't be right. And it was right. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. And it was where you'd pick a plastic toy, like it would be a sword or a shield or a hat. And I picked a shield, and I think the lady standing next to me also picked a shield, and that was cool. And so I had virtually nothing in my pocket when I showed up for that drawing, and when they called my name, like half the place was cheering, and I couldn't believe it. I thought, wow. And I looked around and I'm like, oh, there's James, and there's Patty, and there's Beverly, and there's so many people that I had known. And I just thought, well, that's actually cool. I didn't know that I had that many friends, and I've never really been cheered for in a situation like that. $500 free play is what was inside of my shield. And I was like the third person called. It was second or third person called. So, I mean, I don't know. There was quite a range of possibility. And I think I got up to 650 on that. And then I went and got a room. That was really cool. That was definitely a highlight of my life. They don't do that anymore. They don't have local drawings. They don't have local, that word, I'm sure they have people that live locally that they favor, but it's not all inclusive, that's for sure. And it's a lot harder to win in any of those places. And they can control things better now, I think. Back in 99 or 2001, if you went down there, it was coin in. You could, and when the machines got heavy with coins, they tended to hit. And so it's kind of a thing to like go and get coins and then use coins at first. Put a little weight in the machine. They literally put weights in the machines that they wanted to win, but it's sort of a general thing. It wasn't, so if you went and played on Lucky Machine, you had a good shot at hitting. It wasn't like they didn't control anything by computer. They didn't control anything remotely. It's not like now where they're looking at the stats. They're looking at, oh, yes, that fellow, he's spent $10,000. Go ahead and let him hit that. There's a lot of bad now in the in the game. There's making them like you, having your politics be right. I'm willing to bet on a boring Thursday night in Reno, you could wander across the El Dorado back in the day and be that person who walked in with a red shirt on. Like they sat there going, okay, next person with a red shirt on wins a jackpot. I really think there was stuff like that. But I think they're just all business now, and it's gotten a lot more difficult. There's a lot of bad reviews for almost every hotel in the world. You know, there's, you know, outbreaks of things, bed bugs. It's hard to keep a room clean. I've been a motel maid. I've done that. It's dangerous anymore. I sure wouldn't do it anymore. But um, none of it is what it was. I don't think I hit it at its heyday. Um, I started to play now and then when I'd, vacation or when I'd be in town. Uh, I want to say it was 99. Um, and it was sporadic, and I would go years at a time without doing it. But I kind of wish that when I went to the Lutheran church down the road on California Avenue, I kind of wish that I had, when the minister invited me to the mentally ill group that he had, I kind of wish that I had gone and tried to make a friend, because I think some of the friends might have been slightly more stable than the ones that just, the drug addict types. That's mostly what my friends were. I'm thankful for some of those people. Thank you for being my friend. I know I wasn't your main priority, because now we're in a pandemic and it's harder. It's way harder. And I feel bad for some of the young people having a hard time. And it's more true now about, young people wanting to stick to the area where they went to school, when they went to high school or whatever, because they have all these friends. And now they're 22 and like their friends and them have a baby or whatever. I think that's always been true, and I get it, but I think it's more true now, because it's like when you commit to hanging out with somebody, you're vulnerable to things that you didn't used to be vulnerable to just by virtue of sitting next to them. When the plague of 1918 happened, people would still sit and talk, but they do it sideways so that their breath is going in the opposite direction. That's something that they haven't tried to enforce. I think it's a cool idea. So, those are my thoughts for today. I was just remembering some things. Oh my gosh, another boring old lady, right? So, have a great day. If you have any thoughts, put them down and I'll try to check on that a little later. All right. Love you. Bye.